welcome back to another week of Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with all those movers and shakers, the film and TV makers, those producers, directors, writers, actors, cinematographers, production designers, costume designers, sound mixers, sound editors, film editors, the VFX gurus, composers, and so many more. Today is a very special episode of Behind the Lens, as it is a SLAMDANCE special. That's right, SLAMDANCE Film Festival starts this week on February 20th, running through the 26th. And this year, for the first time in its 31st year, the festival has moved to Los Angeles and is at various venues in the area. There is also a virtual aspect of SLAMDANCE Film Festival that runs February 24th through March 7th on the SLAMDANCE channel. You can get the complete lineup of everything SLAMDANCE at www.slamdance.com. But before you do all that, I spent some time on Valentine's Day talking with a couple of the filmmakers who are marking world premieres of their films at SLAMDANCE. First up will be my exclusive interview with Cameron S. Mitchell talking about his documentary, Disposable Humanity, followed by CORY SANTILLI discussing the wonderfully quirky and wacky narrative feature, In the Mouth. Now, many of you may not be familiar with SLAMDANCE. So let me give you a little bit of background. I know my regular listeners over the past decade have heard me talk about SLAMDANCE. Peter Baxter, one of the founders, Peter has been on the show several times over the years. But first, let me give you a little insight into what SLAMDANCE is. Many of you may not be familiar with SLAMDANCE Film Fest. It was originally established in 1995 by a group of filmmakers who were tired of relying on the existing festival system to showcase their work, primarily because those festivals weren't taking the work that really showed filmmakers thinking outside of the box. And over its 31 years, SLAMDANCE has consistently discovered new and emerging talent that have helped shape our cultural future. This is the mantra of SLAMDANCE is by filmmakers for filmmakers. Since its inception, as I mentioned, the festival has always been around the same time as Sundance, although not a part of Sundance, and held in Park City. However, this year, SLAMDANCE has moved to Los Angeles, and it will run again from February 20th through 26th at various venues, and will be available virtually on the SLAMDANCE channel from February 24th through March 7th. And I, for one, am thrilled that SLAMDANCE has found a new home here in Los Angeles. It fills a void that was created with the demise of Los Angeles Film Festival. So it's nice to see something of this caliber and this kind of notoriety that will and I think LA is a perfect place. Let's get the filmmaking community back in LA. Let's get the films in LA. Let's get the crews in LA. Let's do what we can to boost the film industry here in LA. And I think having a festival like SLAMDANCE now based here in LA is perfect. You know, SLAMDANCE's mission has always been to function as an agent of change in filmmaking and digital media. You know, over the years, they have expanded their lens to go from filmmaking into digital media and help to make the creative works of artists with divergent voices accessible. And it's not just a one-shot deal in February for the festival. SLAMDANCE has year-round programs that include its screenplay competition, DIG, also known as Digital Interactive and Gaming, an accessible education initiative called Polytechnic and Unstoppable, and a showcase of works made by creators with visible and non-visible disabilities. And that's very important, especially with the first film that we're going to talk about today, and that is Disposable Humanity. And you're going to hear in a moment my exclusive interview with the writer, director, cinematographer, and co-editor of Disposable Humanity, Cameron Mitchell. Now, this is an eye-opening documentary about how the Nazis used disabled people to train killing staff and design the concentration camp apparatus for the Holocaust. This is where the genocide started. This is where the Holocaust started. And it's with a program, the Nazi program, Nazi Action T4. And this is where it was developed. How to effectively murder millions of people, how to effectively commit genocide, what is the best method to do that, and how, where can it be done. It was through this program that the gas was developed. The gas method was developed, and also the gas chambers. You will actually, so when you see the film, you will actually see footage of schematics, drawings that have been found over the years showing this, demonstrating this. There is also film footage, some of which was available during the doctor's portion of the Nuremberg trials. We had the Nuremberg trials against the German officials, but then there was also the Nuremberg doctors' trials. Because what this T4 program was, through its development, to come up with things, you've got to have guinea pigs, you've got to have lab rats. Well, the lab rats that the Nazis used were humans. But it wasn't just the average person off the street. It was the sick, the infirm, the disabled, the mentally disabled, people that were in psychiatric institutes, psychiatric hospitals, and then people that had visible disabilities. And those were the people that they took and they experimented on, and that essentially they murdered. These disabled people, mental and physically disabled people, were the first victims to be killed under the Third Reich. And this documentary explores that, takes us back in history. And what also happened is that this is a part of the history that is not really spoken about, that very few people even know about, this Action T4. And it's frightening. But what is also more frightening is that it has really been erased from international public memory. So the disabled community really has been overlooked. The disabled community has been overlooked within daily lives for so long. And they were really overlooked not only back then, but also in how their story has not been told, has not been uncovered, really until now. In this interview, and you'll hear Cameron's passion. The documentary was inspired by his parents. They're both researchers in disability studies. His father is also disabled in a wheelchair. His sister is blind and has another disability. So he has grown up with disability. And every year, the family would take trips to Germany and Austria and Poland to these former T4 sites and make home movies. So after many years of accumulating these films, and this is how Cameron grew up, he finally, okay, it's time to make a film. And you're going to hear him talk about taking those family home movies, putting them together, getting interviews with scholars, with relatives of survivors and of victims, museum curators. Many of these facilities have been turned into museums. So it's quite interesting. There are so many prongs to this story that I really want to see, at some point, see Cameron expand on this and hone in on just one or two specific items. Maybe do a series, a documentary series for television, for public television. because there is so much to fit in that, you know, even talking to him, and we didn't have that much time during our conversation. So I'm hoping to talk to him again in the future. But this is the kind of film that needs more. This is the kind of issue that needs more discussion, more film, more eyes on it, and more research into it. So get ready. You're going to hear Cameron talk about this, talking about, you know, his family, talking about, you know, putting this documentary together, talking about the editing process with decades of family movies that are actually historical pieces. And also, I had to ask him, a beautiful, beautiful aspect of this film is the film's score, composed by Andre Barros, that just enhances the cinematic experience. It is beautiful. But at the end of the day, what I think is going to come through strongest to you is Cameron's passion for this project and his need to help showcase this issue and the need for inclusive memorialization of those who have been overlooked, even to this day. So, take a listen as Cameron Mitchell talks about his documentary marking its world premiere at SLAMDANCE, Disposable Humanity.
Hey.
Hey, Cameron, how are you?
I'm doing good.
But I'm glad I get to talk to you about Disposable Humanity, Cameron. This is an interesting documentary. It's an interesting topic. And the Action T4 is something that has been left out of the conversation when it comes to the Holocaust and genocide during the Third Reich. So I'm curious how long ago you got involved with this and your dad with doing research on Action T4.
Yeah, so we've actually been, well, my folks were presenting on American eugenics, the history of American eugenics in Germany in the 90s, and somebody in the audience stood up and said, do you know that they did this not far from here? And so we, you know, that my parents took myself and my sister Emma, and we went to see our first gas chamber. And they brought a camera that they purchased at a nearby store, and we filmed it. And that's what home movies in the Mitchell family look like, I guess. But it became a documentary short as a part of their academic research. And so we've been doing this since the 90s. And every couple of years we go back. They've taken their classes there. My dad and my mom teach disability studies. My dad teaches a course on disability and the Holocaust. So they've led scholars there. They've led students there since. The inclination was we need to share this because nobody has seen it. And so that's why we started filming initially. And in the film, you can actually see young me and my sister.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was about 8 years old, 8 or 9 years old, and my sister must have been 6 or 7. And we're there with my parents and going through Bernburg, which is it's a gas chamber that's in a town that's 20 minutes outside of Berlin, Germany, in a rural town. So, you know, they often would locate these T4 centers in rural places. They would still be near towns, though. So townspeople knew what was going on. They could see it. And it was actually just the generational trauma and stigma that held a lot of people from telling stories about this, which you hear about in the film.
When did you get the idea to take all of the Mitchell family home movies, all of this footage, and turn it into a feature-length documentary?
So, great question. When we went to Bernburg, my initial instinct was I sat down and I immediately started drawing the gas chamber, and I drew my family members as mouse characters from like Art Spiegelman's Mouse graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think I had an instinct that I didn't see disabled people in Holocaust narratives, and I wanted to see disabled people in them. And so I immediately started making images around it. And then I went to college, or high school and then college, and, you know, I thought I wanted to be a musician, but then I went to India and made a documentary as a part of a study abroad program. And when I came back, I declared film as my major, and then again I had this new art form that I was dabbling in, and I think while I was going to college at Temple, you know, it stuck with me all those years later. That moment never left. You know, it was kind of one of my artistic inspirations, if you will, or early artistic inspirations, and it wasn't my calling, it was something that called to me, and it kept calling me kind of throughout my life. So once I had the skills and I graduated college, I approached my dad in 2013, and I said, I want to make a film about T4. You know how we made you made your film in Bernburg. I want to go to all 6 T4 centers, which are memorials now, and many of them are active psychiatric institutions still. And I want to film at all of them. And, you know, my dad just always encouraging the artist in me, of course, was immediately like, that's a great idea, and I support it, and let's figure out how to do it. And so we spent a couple of years raising a small amount of funds, and in 2017, we were finally able to go do principal photography, and we did it over 2 months in Germany. I packed the family into a ramp van that was stick shift, and none of us could drive stick shift except our B camera operator, Ryan Hamaker. So the only non-family member that was with us, he drove us around Germany and in Poland and Austria, and we visited finally in 2017 all 6 of these sites.
Wow. What an undertaking. Now you have an amazing assortment of interviews that you have peppered throughout here with your home movies. And I'm curious, was it difficult to get these speakers to go on camera, to talk about their different perspectives? Because each one has a different perspective on the T4, on the gas chambers, on the memorials. Everybody adds something different. So I'm curious about bringing all these people together, gaining access to them, which I'm sure your dad and mom were a big help with. So talk to me about that and how you assimilated and accumulated all of these people.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that this is where my dad really earned his producer credit on the film, because he basically coordinated and pointed us to all of the people that we filmed, and some of them we encountered or stumbled upon along the way, which is very German, as you might know. Stolperstein, stumbling stones, are a big part of German memorial culture. So kind of stumbling upon history is how you're supposed to do it in Germany, which I think is a stark contrast to how we view history in America. And museums and memorialization, and which is why the film is, you know, it's part investigative journalism, but it's also part really about memorialization itself. So it's a new kind of film that looks at what memorialization does in terms of remembrance. What does remembrance mean to us? You know, there's an old Jewish proverb that states, you die twice, once when you pass and once when your name's forgotten. And remembrance is a big part of Holocaust studies and Jewish culture. And, you know, I think now more than ever, we need to remind ourselves, or to remember. You know, we're kind of losing that inclination. Elon Musk just told a room full of AfD supporters that it's time for Germany to forget about the past, to move on, that children aren't responsible for the crimes of their parents. And, you know, it's very convenient that these, you know, seemingly fascist leaders are telling us to forget right at the time when we need to remember. And Elon, you don't even know how the Holocaust started. We don't, and we don't know how the Holocaust started. T4 is what catalyzed the Holocaust. They would not have been able to kill 6 million Jews without the invention of the gas chamber and the training of the staff. There were killing staff that were transferred to all of the death camps, and T4 personnel that literally designed the death camps as a part of Operation Reinhardt. So there's a whole gap here that we need to fill in, and quickly, right now, if I might add.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the timing of your documentary is just, unfortunately, perfect. And it's quite fascinating how eye-opening it is in terms of Operation Reinhardt and in terms of the genesis of the gas chambers and mass execution and genocide. I found that one of the most interesting parts of your film. But it's something that's really curious. You have all of these places you visit. You have the memorials. You have all of your interviews. At what point did you as a filmmaker start putting this together in a cogent film and finding your through line to tell this story?
So the film is, if you were to tell T4 in a chronological fashion, it would actually be from a perpetrator perspective. So it's actually a very challenging subject to tackle. But film is honestly the only medium, I believe, that can fully capture it and bring it to life, because you start to look into T4 and you see pages and pages and books of dense material that's sitting there waiting to be discovered. But it is dense, and there's a lot of it. And it's hard to connect. It's hard to feel the human emotion and empathy behind all of that text. And for years and years and years, I mean, we even saw in the Nuremberg trials, they were referred to in the doctors' trials as husks of humanity by nurses that stood trial. Leon Jaworski, who later prosecutes Watergate, has to go find Polish tubercular victims of T4 in order to prove that it wasn't just crimes against national Germans. There were international crimes, which is, one of the reasons why it was segmented from Nuremberg. The doctors' trials were separate. But so there are many reasons why, and I think the film does a good job of laying out all of the layering of how the disabled people became the first to be killed and the last to be remembered, because the T4 memorial is the last monument open to the public in Berlin in 2014.
Yeah.
And, so you can, when you're filming, you go, and as a documentarian, I think you capture and you respond. It's and this is what I love about the form of documentary is it's kind of like improv jazz or improvisation, because you're reacting and responding with the camera, which is kind of a protagonist in these situations, and choosing where you're going to place the camera, which is why we say that this is the first feature film to solely focus on action T4, and it's told by disabled people. It's incredibly important that be realized as a part of the film's architecture and how it pulls you in, because perspective matters. For years and years and years, these doctors, the people who tried these trials, did not see themselves as disabled. And I think any disabled person that enters one of these T4 gas chambers, you immediately realize it would have been me, or it could have been me, and it doesn't matter if I identify as disabled or I call myself disabled. The Nazis would have sought me out. They would have found me through a questionnaire that I filled out with my doctor unknowingly, and it wouldn't have been my choice. So I think it's incredibly important to think about the human emotional component of this history, and that's my job as a filmmaker, is I have to reach into the past and I have to bring to life and relate these lives and show that it's never too late to remember somebody who's been forgotten, to remember the over 300,000 disabled lives that disappeared off the face of the earth with nobody really blinking an eye.
How long was the editing process to put all the footage together, put the interviews in there, and fulfill your vision of this film?
So I approached Rachel Sophia Stewart, who's a multiple Emmy Award-winning editor in Philadelphia, because that's where my production company was based when we started this. It now is based in upstate New York. That's how long it's been. I knew immediately that Rachel was the right person, because when I told her about T4 and what happened to disabled people, she almost immediately started crying, like right in front of me. And that's how I knew that she would be the right person to engage with this, because there's a certain skill, an empathetic skill that you need to be able to relate the story. And Rachel was that partner in the editing room for me. Literally, this film is in part my life's work, and you could argue I'd been working on it in my head since I was 9 years old, when we went to Bernburg and we filmed my parents' film. And so Rachel was able to come in and offer so many different perspectives that allowed for this dance of history and information and empathy. And so that took us from, we did principal photography to the summer of 2017, and then about 5 months later, I think we started with Rachel, and then we basically finished the final cut for festivals this month. So in February 2025.
Wow.
So that's how long documentaries take, I guess. You kind of got to allow it to breathe and to think about it. And this is a very complex subject. The film, I think, does a lot of heavy lifting in a lot of different areas. And so you really want to make sure you get it right.
Because we're almost out of time here, Cameron, I do have to ask you about a beautiful element of this film, and that is Andre Barros' score. What were you looking for musically to support the story that you're telling, the history that you're telling? Because his score is just, the strings, the violins are exquisite.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I wish Andre was here to help me answer this, because he could tell you in much more intricate detail his design of this score, which was designed over years, actually, much like my relationship with Rachel. Andre actually approached me when we ran our Indiegogo campaign to raise funds for principal photography back in 2017. So Andre has also been with me and involved in this project since 2017. And, we had always discussed that we wanted a live score, that we wanted live instruments, that the physicality, the breathing of the instruments, the breathing of the musicians, it all mattered in the score. So this is ingrained in the score of the film. We initially had planned to record it in Iceland with an Icelandic orchestra. That didn't end up panning out, but he ended up doing it locally in Portugal.
Wow.
So, and with Portuguese musicians, and they just did a brilliant job. And I'm so proud of this score because it pairs hand in hand with the filming. It's all supposed to be moving camera and kind of a cinematic experience that lulls you in and pulls you in and holds you.
You could actually release a soundtrack of the score. It's that beautiful.
Yeah,
I would buy it. Now I know we are out of time here, but very, very quickly, how important is it to you to be back at SLAMDANCE? You were just there 2 years ago with your short, Elsa. You're back again. What makes SLAMDANCE the perfect festival for this film?
It wasn't by accident. We wanted SLAMDANCE to premiere this film because SLAMDANCE is the only major festival that statistically matches the representation of disability in the population. the Unstoppable program is by disabled filmmakers and with disabled filmmakers, and it is so essential. I mean, I think it just exudes the ethos of Disposable Humanity, that the disabled perspective matters, and it's a multiverse of new stories that if only we can understand the importance of perspective, we could have access to, and we could really see that how much depth there is there, and how much more there is to learn about humanity. And so SLAMDANCE is just, you know, Peter and Taylor. They've just been great supporters of mine in my career. I showed my first narrative short film, my first film I ever made as a director and writer, The Co-op, in 2020 at SLAMDANCE, and you know that launched the film as well. And then, you know, to go back with Elsa, you know, a PBS American Masters documentary short in 2023, and then to have an opening night screening of it in Park City, it was a dream come true. And so I feel like, you know, the way SLAMDANCE has lifted up my career and been with me throughout it, it's only appropriate that you know, my first feature film is premiering there, and in the first year that they've moved to LA as well.
Hopefully you're going to get distribution on this, and when you do, I want to circle back and talk to you more. But for right now, this has been wonderful getting to talk to you about Disposable Humanity. Congratulations on the film.
So this film is actually, opening night is Thursday, and our world premiere is Friday, but they gave us the best slot. We have 7:15 p.m. on Friday, the 21st, and then if you can't make that, we have a second screening on Saturday, the 22nd at 5:30, and we're expecting a lot of diversity in attendance, and that's, we wanted to screen the film also for a disabled and non-disabled audience in an accessible atmosphere, and SLAMDANCE gets that.
They certainly do. Peter has always been really good about that. Well, you go have a wonderful, wonderful premiere on the 21st, and hopefully we will chat again in the future, Cameron.
It was really a wonderful chat. You had great questions. I really hope it happens again.
I do too. And that was Cameron Mitchell talking about Disposable Humanity. Now we're going to turn our attention over to something that's a little bit lighter. And that's my exclusive interview with CORY Santilli, writer, director, and editor of In the Mouth. Also making its world premiere at SLAMDANCE. It's a feature narrative. One of the things that you'll notice, even in publicity materials on the SLAMDANCE site, this film is shot in black and white. It boasts some wonderful production elements as well as outstanding performances from Colin Burgess and Paul Michael. In the Mouth, it is the story of Merle, a man who's been living his life as a shut-in recluse in complete isolation, unable to leave his house after discovering a giant version of himself protruding from his lawn. In other words, this huge head, bigger than the size of a house, is sticking up from the lawn, and the mouth is wide open. This is what Merle sees when he looks out his windows. And this is what CORY has brought to life on screen. It's fabulous when you see it. Poor Merle has run out of money, but if he doesn't pay his rent in the next 5 days, his landlord is going to evict him. With no other options left, he's forced to get a roommate, run an ad, get a roommate to pay him in advance so that he can pay his landlord. A guy named Larry, an older man, he has no baggage, no suitcase, no nothing. Just the clothes on his back. Shows up at the door. Hey, I'm the answer to your problem. Okay. Merle lets Larry in, takes his money, and now you have a man who suffers from agoraphobia, letting somebody into his house. He's not comfortable with people either, or letting people into his house. And then Larry, for whatever reason, he doesn't want to be found. So it's a big adjustment for both of them. But as you see unfold in the film, maybe they can each learn a little thing or two. And of course, there's some great twists and turns with some real surprising results that happen. So As you'll hear in our conversation, Cory talks about how his own agoraphobia led to this story, and also tied in with that's one of the reasons he shot in black and white, and why everything is contained to a single location, so that doesn't have to move from location to location to location. There are a total of 164 scenes in this film, shot in 11 days. And I know the filmmakers out there, their jaws are dropping at hearing that. That's a hell of a lot of scenes to shoot in 11 days. A big part of Cory's ability to do that, though, is his cinematographer, Mike Majelinek. His work is meticulous, and it's wonderful here. The visual grammar that has been developed between Cory and Mike, it emphasizes the shadows and the negative space that comes with great lighting and shooting black and white. It's really, from a visual standpoint, I think your filmmakers are going to appreciate the depth of cinematic texture, and the rest of you watching the film are really going to be swept into Merle's world. As I mentioned, the film stars Colin Burgess and Paul Michael, and Cory had previously collaborated with them, which led him to bring them in for this. The music score, it's fun. It's composed by Kubelar Uner, and it blends whimsy and genre elements, and it's really a great buoy underneath this story, and really captures the innate humor that comes with somebody who thinks that there's a huge head out on his lawn that's keeping him from leaving his house. It's a wonderful conversation with Cory, especially when he delves into the lessons that he learned in making this film. And, reliance on his instincts, and how this entire filmmaking experience has helped him. So, without any further ado, take a listen to my exclusive interview with Cory Santilli talking about In the Mouth. Hi, Cory.
Hello, how you doing, Debbie?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Not bad, thank you.
Everything shouldn't be bad because of the fact that you've got a very weirdly wonderful film that is making its world premiere next week at SLAMDANCE.
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited about it. We all are.
I didn't know what to expect with this film. The first thing that caught my attention is that you shot in black and white. I found it absurdly dark and funny, and I love it. I just think you did a wonderful job with it. So it begs the question, because this is so original, where did the idea come from for In the Mouth?
Well, thanks so much. The idea came about just out of pure frustration. I had a lot going on, and I was dealing with housebound agoraphobia, and I hadn't left my house in a while, and I needed to write something, and I just started to write that, and as I wrote, I was basically taking my frustrations out on myself, and and I think I was also trying to shine light on the absurdity of the situation, and I was trying to talk to myself a little bit in the process. But yeah, that's pretty much how it all came about. It was really just like a letter of frustration.
How long was the journey to get this film made? It's challenging enough, as you know, because you have shorts under your belt. Challenging enough to get anything made, let alone a feature film, and to do one this creatively, visually, and in black and white, which is a rarity. So I'm curious about the length of your journey here to bring In the Mouth to life.
I feel like I wrote it I wrote it and then sort of forgot about it, and then I think I had been trying to get something else made, and it fell through, and then
I just needed to work on getting back out of the house and working on something creative, and it felt like I needed to do something that had a limited amount of location, so I could just kind of focus on getting to one place rather than needing to get to 20.
Sure.
And people kept asking me about that script because I had shared it with some friends, and so it just kind of kept making its way back into conversation. So when I felt like, all right, I need something that is sort of isolated, that was the one. And I actually, I had made a feature in 2018 that was also about isolation, but it wasn't as overt as this one. It was sort of like, it was a lot like, its themes of isolation are not subtle when you're watching it, but to me, it was more of like a commentary on how people have to navigate isolation, as opposed to like a mandated isolation on this one. And I think I think I had been working on trying to make something with this theme in mind for a long time, but for this particular project, I feel like it took a couple of years, but most of those years weren't me trying to make it. I feel like I had never really actually thought I was going to make it, to be quite honest. If it weren't for people bringing it up, I probably wouldn't have ever considered it.
Once you decided you were going to make it, you bring in your cinematographer, Mike Majilnik, and I'm curious, I love the visual grammar in the film. So I'm curious how you and Mike developed the visual grammar and your decision to go with black and white, which personally, for a film of this nature, I think was a wise choice because of the way that Mike really plays with shadows, with the shades of gray, with black, white, and giving us some negative space, which really speaks to fear and being locked in. So I'm curious how the two of you developed the visual grammar for In the Mouth.
Yeah, I don't actually remember why the decision was made to shoot in black and white. I always remember it being black and white. I know that it was like always meant to be. I don't remember it. I know we had references. I just don't remember what came first, if the references came first or if shooting in black and white the decision to shoot in black and white came first. I don't know which one informed which.
Mm-hmm.
To me, if I trace my finger back, it's like it was always black and white. It was like almost never even up for debate, and no one ever really questioned it. So I don't remember the decision, but I know that most of our references were that. And yeah, I mean, the whole film was storyboarded, so like every frame was storyboarded, and we pretty much stuck to that. So it was sort of all decided before, and we tested LUTs and we tested cameras and decided on how we were going to do it. So we really prepared as much as we could beforehand because we had to move really quickly. We didn't have many days, and we had a lot of scenes. It was like 164 scenes or something crazy like that. So yeah, we were always sort of on the same page about it, and I think, I wanted to be a little bit more whimsical with this.
Mm-hmm.
My first film is very static, and I wanted to try to make it a little bit more whimsical. So, we discussed split diopters and renting a scissor lift for some crane shots, and almost everything was on a dolly. So yeah, we just made a lot of decisions beforehand and got on the same page about it, and then there wasn't much time to like discuss things on set because we had to move so quickly. So almost all of those decisions were made before we even got there.
How many days did you have to shoot this, Cory?
11.
Wow. With 164 scenes? Wow.
Yeah, it was, in hindsight, it was ridiculous that we even thought we could do it. I don't think I would make the same decision right now. yeah, and some of those scenes were like, there'd be 20 shots in a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were moving incredibly fast. And black and white, like you said, black and white is also helps you to be a little bit more efficient because there's a few things you don't have to worry about when you're in black and white, and so you could just focus a little bit more on, on shaping things with light, and not having to worry about color so much. So yeah, but it was incredibly ambitious, and it was not as stressful as it sounds for some reason. I don't know why that is, though.
I love the lighting that Mike brings to the table here in the design. It really serves the story and the characters well, both Merle and Larry, which is really interesting. And in a way, there's a lot of similarities between the two. The one needs to hide for reasons we're not going to say because it's a spoiler. The other one because of the housebound agoraphobia. But the way the two of you have designed this visually and played that, it works so well. And it looks cinematic and beautiful at the same time. So
that's awesome to hear.
Kudos to both of you on that. Now, you're also editing this. Did you edit as you went? In 11 days is going to be a little bit difficult. Or did you wait until you had all your footage and then take an editing pass? What was your process like there?
I intended to have a cut done by the time we wrapped, but I learned on day one that that was not going to be possible. It just wasn't practical at all. I almost always spent lunch, just like going through storyboards. So yeah, we would watch dailies just to make sure everything was in the can. But I wasn't able to start cutting until the end, and then I don't really do assemblies the way that other editors do. I understand why they're helpful. It just doesn't help me. So yeah, I just started editing the film pretty much chronologically and working pretty closely with the producers from the day we wrapped.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm curious, because you knew going in you were going to be editing, did this help you in terms of, as you were actually filming, were you seeing in your mind's eye, okay, well, maybe I can do away with this, maybe I should shift this here? Did your editing hat come into play while you were directing?
Yeah, the editing sort of came into play when we were storyboarding. We were pretty much watching the movie on paper every time we would, block it. Everyone would kind of huddle around the storyboard to see what it was going to be, and yeah, on the day you definitely realize, okay, we don't need this shot, or you only have an hour and you need 2 hours, so you have to condense a couple of things. But yeah, everything was very intentional, and we tried to trust the storyboard as much as possible and not to just get stuff to get stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, thankfully, you kept your cast with as many scenes as you have and as fast as you had to shoot. You kept your cast very, very small. But now, how did you go about finding Colin and Paul to play Merle and Larry?
I had been in touch with both of them for a while. Colin and I had been trying to work on things for like 3 or 4 years prior, and I was either just, for all different reasons, I just either wasn't ready to work on something, or something that I was trying to work on had fallen through. And then Paul, I had cast in something in like 2019 or 2020, and then the pandemic shut it down, and then I just stayed in touch with him. So I had been in touch with both of them, and it was just a coincidence that they sort of fit. They both fit these parts in my head. So when it came time to figure out who needed to play, they both were sort of the first people that came into my mind.
They're both wonderful. Colin is brilliant in this role.
Yeah, Colin's very funny, and he's a great actor. They both are. I was very lucky. Like every day, you know, part of the reason we were moving so quickly is because they were so well prepared.
Well, and you know, and Colin, his facial expressiveness speaks volumes in this film, and this is where his ability and Mike's cinematography, and then the camera work, it just really captures some amazing moments that you then pick up in your editing so they don't get lost anywhere. And that really adds so much to your storytelling with this one. Really nice little triumvirate working there with Colin, with Mike, and then with you with your editing hat. I'm really impressed by that.
Oh, well, awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, everyone did such a good job. Even in post, you know, and the art department and the sound mixer, everyone really delivered. We had a really small crew, but everyone really went above and beyond expectations.
Now, you didn't overlook music in this. You've got some great scoring here. What were you looking for musically?
I feel like music was hard to articulate. The composer also scored my first film and some experimental things that I've done in between. And he's really good at honing in on everything once he sees what the film is supposed to be doing. We had a lot of conversations. I think the hardest part about it was that we didn't want it to sound like a derivative. Like I think that it'd be really simple to just sort of score it the way that someone, you know, like it's sort of cartoony. It's sort of like a genre bender. I think, you know, people think like John Bryan or something, and I think we were really trying to find something in the middle of that. And he had a really good idea early on that he had this like device. I wish I knew what it was called, where he could manipulate all the instruments he was playing through this thing he could put in his mouth.
Wow.
It was sort of like a tube or something, and so like all of the things that he was doing were being filtered by this like mouthpiece, and which obviously for in the mouth. So a lot of these sounds, a lot of these sounds and instruments have like a human like quality to them because he was sort of manipulating them with his voice. But yeah, it took a few conversations before he started sketching some stuff, and it all, you know, it was always good. It just sort of was about honing it and crafting it over time and trying to make something that sort of felt like it was selling the film as like as a thriller, but also had levity. So we didn't want it to be too sort of like stereotypical genre sounding. We wanted to have a little bit of playfulness to it.
You definitely have some whimsy happening within the score itself, and that plays really well with the imagery that we get of the big head on the front lawn.
Yeah, that's great. That's good to hear.
I love the big head and the open mouth on the front lawn. It just makes me laugh. Did you do that in the editing process, the visual effects on that head and mouth, or did you farm that out?
Some of it is practical effects. Like we had a miniature house and a miniature like grass area, and some of it was practical where we just put Colin's head through the lawn, or we put him, you know, by a miniature of a house and things. And then the rest of it was done by our VFX artist. We just did the rest of it on green screen. It was the initial intention was for everything to be practical and for everything to be forced perspective, but we learned pretty early on that for the sake of time, we just weren't going to have enough time to get everything perfect. So I think by day 3 or 4, we just started saying, okay, we're going to have to to do this one in post and this one in post. So yeah, it's a mix of practical and post VFX.
And just think, you have now allowed Colin the opportunity to put on his resume, stuck my head through fake grass.
Yeah, there you go.
Not too many actors can say that.
That's very true.
So now you've got your world premiere coming up on the 21st at SLAMDANCE. Why SLAMDANCE? What is it about SLAMDANCE that makes it the festival for you to have the world premiere?
You know, we were talking on set. I think someone asked on set where we wanted to play it, and everyone just sort of felt like SLAMDANCE would be the best place. We didn't know anyone there or anything. We just felt like that would be the best place to play if they'd have us. And so we submitted, and we got in, and we felt very lucky. I think it's probably because they're a bit, their whole mission statement is sort of to champion uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we've been able to really put our finger on how to identify, like, as a genre or as a film in general. We've just sort of made this thing, and we know that what the tone is supposed to be, but it's always sort of felt like something that's been a little bit off the rubric. And so I think that, you know, there's probably no better place for that than SLAMDANCE, just
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the type of stuff that they're curating. So yeah, we feel very lucky to have the opportunity to play there.
Now, I think it's a perfect festival for you and this film, because SLAMDANCE thinks outside the box, and you definitely thought outside the box with In the Mouth, which begs the question, now that you've made the film, you're about ready to premiere, as you look back on the experience of making In the Mouth, what did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker that you can take forward into future projects, of which there better be many? I'm just telling you now.
So.
There better be many. So what did you learn as a filmmaker about yourself?
I think I learned that I can be a little bit more trusting of my gut. I did not feel that way on my first film, and I think that on this one, you know, it's partially due to the people I was around and how supportive the cast and crew was. But yeah, I think I learned that I can kind of trust my gut a little bit more. And yeah, I think I've, you know, I'm not a particularly, like, I would say I'm not a particularly confident person. I'm a more confident filmmaker because I'm not really considering anything except my intention. So I understand, you know, that doesn't mean that people are going to like it, or I mean, I hope they do, but I at least know what I intend to do, and on this, I think that being able to trust myself a little bit more was really helpful to me. Whereas on my first film, that wasn't really present, and so it wasn't necessarily like a bad experience. It just wasn't what this one was, and this feels like it's been the best experience I think I've had making something to date. So yeah, so I think I have to try to trust my gut a little bit more and not ignore it.
Well, if this is the kind of film that you can make when you trust your gut, definitely trust your gut more, Cory. Because you've done a wonderful job with this. And dare I even say, not going to give away a spoiler, but the ending of the film, those last few minutes in that third act, I think totally encapsulates your experience in making this film.
Thank you so much.
Job so well done, Cory. This has been so wonderful getting to talk with you this morning.
Likewise.
Have a wonderful, wonderful world premiere on the 21st, and you've got an encore. You get an encore screening too on Monday the 24th, correct?
Yes, our world premiere is sold out, but the encore still is a bit, like, there's still tickets available, and then there's tickets available to the virtual festival as well.
Well, this is one. I've seen a number of films for Slamdance. Yours is like at the top, one of the ones at the top of my list.
Wow, Debbie.
I just think I really like this, Corey, and I hope you get a distribution deal out of this one, because there's an audience for it.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to be able to share it with more people.
Well, fingers crossed, and I hope we get to chat again in the future.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you, Corey. And that was my exclusive interview with CORY SANTILLI. And again, In the Mouth makes its world premiere Friday the 21st with an encore performance on Monday the 24th. And again, In the Mouth will also be screening on the virtual portion of the Slamdance Festival on the Slamdance channel. So don't forget, you can get more information on these films and everything else Slamdance at slamdance.com. And that is all the time we have for today. Next week, you really want to tune in next week. I will have my exclusive interview with director Julius Ona talking about Captain America, Brave New World. They have me on an embargo until Friday the 21st for the film because they don't want any spoilers out there. And some press may get, no, some interviewers may incorporate spoilers. But no, Disney and Marvel want to make sure no spoilers come out. So that's why interview, embargo, until Friday the 21st, which is why you're going to hear the interview on Monday the 24th. So you don't want to miss that. Also, on Monday the 24th, I'm going to be talking about No Mercy. K-N-O-W, No Mercy. And I'll have the director, the writer-director of that film joining me as well. So, until next week, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.